Hello and welcome to Fox Sports Lab AFL Round 22. Chief on a Thursday, previewing tomorrow night's game to start. We're going to get straight into it. Collingwood, MCG and the Cats. I have to say, though, 100 points last week, Chief. They conceded and the Hawks helped themselves to plenty. Now, that hasn't happened since round 4. So, Collie Wobbles, everyone's on the Collie Wobbles. How are you seeing this one up against the reigning premiers?
It's a big game at the MCG. Both teams have got a few injury issues to deal with. I thought Geelong were really good last week. They did a great job to get over Port Adelaide, albeit down at GMHBA. It was still a good win. The Pies, I expect to bounce back. I know everyone's coming up with reasons why they're going to jump off a cliff, Collingwood, but I can't have it. I still think they're a very good side, and I'm tipping them in this one.
All right. Well, last week I got smashed in clearances, so Hawthorn beat them in their differential by 13.
Yep.
So it wasn't just a Nick Dacos injury or a Murray injury. It was a case of, okay, there's a few holes appearing and the Hawks pulled them apart. But you see Geelong's midfield, they're getting the numbers done at the moment. So surely you've got to say there's a few holes in the Collingwood outfit.
Well, there are, but it's not just clearances. It's scores from clearances as well, which is hurting them. They'll be obviously doing some work on that. I wouldn't expect them just to go out and sort of trot out the same stuff that they did against Hawthorn last week. They got touched up. Maybe a little bit of a wake-up call. Expect them to bounce back hard. They're a good team.
All right. Well, Brody might check. So I'm going to angle towards the Collingwood forward. So 4 of the last 5, he's been goalless. So we pumped him up early in the year. He's getting plenty of supply. Now he's going to have to find it himself. So who's going to kick their goals? If Brody's quiet and then you've got Billy Elliott, they're going to put a lot of attention in that with Tom Stewart down there as well.
They will need a good mix, need a good spread of goal kickers, need their midfield kicking goals as well. I think that's something that's dried up a little bit over the last month or so. So trusting in Collingwood to bounce back and show some good form.
All right, I am too, Collingwood as well. So Sydney and the Suns. Now, you want this stat? I am a bit of a guru with my stats. 3 of the last 4 at the SCG, the Suns have won. So it's a happy ground for the Suns. And the Swannies, though, they've been in and out a little bit, but they're winning close games. So do you think the tradition will continue, as they used to say at the Masters, with the Suns?
Oh, it's going to be a good game, I think. And what about you taking credit for all Joel's stats? You are a thief. It surprised me when I heard that, though. Look, the Suns are hanging about there. They're not going to play finals, but they can certainly damage a few teams that have finals hopes. So Sydney will need to be on their best behaviour. They are on a bit of a run, though. They are travelling the Swans. They're finding ways to win games. A good win over the Giants last week. Surely this time at home they can find enough to beat the Suns.
Well, I mean, they're sitting 10th on the ladder at the moment, the Swannies, but in 14 games this year, they've led at three-quarter time. So they haven't quite closed out the games, but we saw Tom Papley go into the midfield last week and especially probably the last couple of weeks and have the impact. So are they turned a corner, the Swannies?
Well, I think they've won 4 or 5 on the trot, I think it is.
Yep.
So they're not travelling that badly, Diggo. And they've had a couple of good wins amongst those 4. So even though they look a little bit undermanned, and we know they've got problems down back with some players missing, and the midfield at different stages has sort of spluttered and coughed a bit. I love the way Errol Goulden plays. He's a star, mate. And if Warner and co can go along with him, I think they can get the job done.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'm with the Swannies. All right, North Melbourne. So Clarko's back, and Essendon, we did that game last week where they just got over West Coast, but this is a danger game, I have to say, because Essendon need to win to stay in contention.
Yeah, and everyone's penciled it in for the Bombers, but they were woeful last week, mate. No bones about that. They were very, very ordinary. And funnily enough, North Melbourne gave the D's one hell of a fright in the first half down in Hobart. So, the other thing is too, Cunnington send-off game.
Yep.
Ben Cunnington has been such a star for North Melbourne. There'll be plenty of emotion there, Dicko. So if they don't dot their I's and cross their T's, the Bombers, they'll get one heck of a surprise. You've got to go for the Bombers here, but you're right, it is a danger game.
Yep, I'm going with Essendon as well, but certainly a danger game. Brisbane, Adelaide. Now, Adelaide, credible stat against top 4 teams, so 3-3. And when you look at Adelaide, they're 3 losses, 7 points in total points in terms of that. So they've been in a lot of games. They started the season fast, and now they're starting to hit their straps again. So they come up against Brisbane at the Gabba that's going to be the big acid test, isn't it?
Yeah, so the problem for Adelaide has been winning away from home, even though they've had a couple of really good performances at the MCG against good teams. As you say, they just haven't quite got over the line. Melbourne and Collingwood, a couple of those teams that they've really run to the wire. So the form actually looks okay. They're just not getting the W's away from home. Big trip up to the Gabba, but Brisbane are coming back from a Perth trip. They were very unimpressive, sneaking home against Freo. So I think this is a genuine danger game for Brisbane. And even though I'm tipping Brisbane at home because that's the safe tip, I think Adelaide are a big chance.
Yeah, I'm the same. So I'm going with Brisbane as well. So this is probably the match of the round for me. Carlton and Melbourne. So 7 in a row, the Blue Baggers. I jumped off. They went on a run. Now I'm back on. And Melbourne have just opened up the shoulders. They scored 100 points in the last 4 rounds. So it's going to be a shootout. There's no doubt. But Carlton, do you see them maintaining that streak against pretty hot Melbourne?
Yeah, Melbourne's got a streak going as well. I think they've got 5 on the trot, so they're in very good form. These are the 2 form teams of the competition right now going head-to-head. So this is going to be an absolute beauty. I thought Charlie Curnow was down a bit last week. Can he bounce back to his best? That would make a massive difference. I find the way Melbourne's playing a little bit irrepressible at the moment. I think Carlton dug themselves out of a hole last week against the Saints. They weren't great, didn't play great, but I think it's a sign of a vastly improved side that you can play somewhere below your best and still find a way to win. They did that. I'm just leaning towards the D's in this one.
Yeah, well, I'm sticking with the Blue Baggers because...
Geez, you're a shocker. You rode them until they were done, and then you jumped off, and now the bandwagon's rolling again, and you're back on.
Yeah, and are you surprised? That's just the way I roll. All right, we're going to talk about the Derby. Eagles and the Dockers. You mentioned Eagles last week. We did that game.
Yep.
Could have won it. It's been plenty of talk. I'm not buying into it. But the Dockers, they've been so unimpressive this year in terms of what their output is. But just think the Dockers should be getting this one done, surely.
Well, they should be. And let's not forget, they went to Geelong a couple of weeks ago and beat Geelong in Geelong. Then they nearly beat Brisbane at home at Optus Stadium. So their form's not terrible. And West Coast can't afford to lose that number 1 draft pick, Dicko. So a nice competitive performance from them would be great. We know there's a couple of retiring Eagles. Shannon Hearn's got a couple of games to go. Luke Shuey. Hopefully we'll get a send-off game. So, there's a little bit of emotion there as well. And there's the crosstown rivalry. They don't particularly like each other, these 2 clubs. Have to stick with Freo, though, in this one.
Yep, I'm with Freo as well. And it's not they don't like, they hate each other over there in the West. Our beloved Hawks, can they back it up against the Doggies? Doggies hit some really good form. They played a sensational game last week. But can you see the Hawks backing that up?
If they play like they did last week, they could easily win this one, the Hawks. Yep. They've played some exciting football at different stages. But I also saw the Dogs last week, and that's as good as I've seen the Dogs. That first quarter against the Tigers, they just lit it up. And I think they can trouble Hawthorn's defence. Should be a good game. I don't think there's going to be too much in it. But I'm going to tip the Dogs in this one, just with a bit more to play for.
All right, I'm going with the Hawks. I'm glad you jumped off the Hawks off the back of last week. You're kidding. The Saints in Richmond, the false positive. I shouldn't say that because I'm actually here at St Kilda doing this at the moment. But the false positive, they're still in the 8 with the form they're producing. Like, come on. And the Tigers. I mean, this is more than... finals footy. This is Andrew McQualter for putting his hand up for this job. But I'm tipping Richmond, and I'd love to know if you're coming with me.
I'm not coming with you. They were dreadful last week. I thought they were really, really, really average. Midfield genuinely struggled. Just couldn't give their forwards a look. Looked a little bit inexperienced. They've got a few players out. Now, they might get 1 or 2 back, but still concerned about their form. Mind you, tipping St Kilda is never something you do with confidence, Dicko. But I thought their first half against Carlton was very good. If they can show us a little bit more of that over 4 quarters, I think it's good enough to get the points.
All right. Well, as I said, I'm going with the Tigers in that one. Just to round it out, I'm going to be real quick. It is a big game. Let's be honest, Port Adelaide dropped down the ladder now after holding second position for so long. And then the Giants' run came to an end after 7 in a row. So they're going to travel to Adelaide, but massive game. Like, I'm actually tipping the Giants in this one for an upset because the injuries have really hurt Port Adelaide.
They have, and that's their problem. They have a particularly strong team, but I think they're a little bit light on for depth. So it's getting tested at the moment. I can't back against Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. I think you're crazy if you do that. As good as the Giants have been, I expected the Giants to beat Sydney last week. They didn't get it done. Maybe that momentum's just been broken, but they're still in the mix and wanting to play finals, and probably will play finals. So it is a big game, but it's a big task to go to the Adelaide Oval and win. Yeah,
well, I'm causing the upset in that one. All right, we're going to finish with unders and overs. Doesn't matter which way you go. I'm going with the overs in the Carlton game. 215 is ridiculous in a two-horse race after you've won 7 in a row against Melbourne. So that's my overs. What have you got?
I think, even though I haven't tipped them, Dicko, I think the Adelaide Crows at the Gabba of the overs at $3.35. I think that's a pretty good look for a game that could be pretty tight.
All right, there you have it, punters. A couple of overs in round 22. All right, Chief, we're back on Monday. Have a look at what happened over the weekend. Enjoy your weekend.
Look forward to it.
Thanks for joining us on Sports Lab AFL.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.